Recently, thanks to the 60th anniversary specials, I've been on a massive Doctor Who kick. This is in no way self-evident from the content of my channel at the moment. Most of my rewatch has been focused on the classic era of the show, as it is the era of the series I have the most fondness for. It's been an interesting exercise, especially in seeing how my opinions of the show have changed since the last time I watched all of Classic Who. By the way, the last time I did that was between 2017 and 2018, when I took a year to watch the whole lot. I actually lost a friend or two because I couldn't shut up about it. It was good. In my current sort of sporadic skipping around the series, I have now recently watched all 128 episodes of the Third Doctor's run, which were divided up into 24 serials. What I've found is that, in my mind, these 5 years under the watchful eye of producer Barry Letts and editor Terrence Dix is probably the most consistently good run the show has ever had. Doctor Who has had higher highs, but in terms of consistency, this era outpaces the others by quite a margin, in my opinion. So, for this video, I'll be doing what the title says, ranking these 24 serials going from least good to best of all. And if you want to hear a full review from me about any of these serials, let me know and I will try to put that together too. Okay, that's enough preamble, let's get into it. Returning to the planet Peladon after 50 years, the Doctor finds himself once again wrapped in the planet's political intrigue. Now a member of the Federation, Peladon has been asked to mine the compound trisilicate to aid in the Federation's war efforts against their enemy Galaxy 5. But things keep going wrong. Has the spirit of Agador become angry with the new queen of Peladon, Thalira? Thalira, that's right, yeah. Or is there a greater conspiracy at play? Now, Doctor Who can be many things. It can be stupid. It can be insane. It can be just plain goofy. But one thing I will not forgive it for is being boring. With a concept as outlandish as Doctor Who, there really is no excuse for being boring. Unfortunately, this is what the monster of Peladon is. The thing is, there's a good serial hiding in this, the political intrigue could work really well, and there's a lot of fun alien designs going on. Unfortunately, they had already done the good serial hiding in this one. It was called The Curse of Peladon, and it had been broadcast 2 years beforehand. So what does this one have to offer exactly? Nothing, really? In fact, talking about it critically is really hard to do because of just how little material there actually is in this 2.5 hour serial. It really feels like everyone involved was sleepwalking their way through this one, not particularly interested at all. Brian Hale's script lacks all of the carefully plotted intrigue of the original, trading it in for the most surface-level commentary on topics like miners' strike and feminism you've ever seen. Director Lenny Mayne also doesn't really feel like he cares much. He's a director who I find added an interesting flair to the work he did for the show by and large, just watch the first episode of The Hand of Fear, but there's no such inventiveness here. The direction is mostly lifeless, save for a psychedelic effect that's more headache-inducing than cool. Oh yeah, and the Ice Warriors are there too, but their use doesn't present any new ideas, and I get the feeling literally any Doctor Who enemy could have been slotted into their place. It's a fatally boring use of them, especially a shame given how well they were used in the serial this is a sequel to. 1 star, this one's dull as hell. Sent on a mission by the Time Lords, the Doctor and Joe land on the planet Euraxius. They find the planet is in dispute, a group of colonists and a mining company both claiming stake to it. A primitive native species also occupies the planet, a species with a secret the Master is hell-bent on discovering. The fact of the matter is nothing really happens in this serial. Oh, there are lots of plot threads to follow which awkwardly weave between each other in an attempt to stay consistent, but despite Malcolm Hulke's rather left-wing touch, nothing of substance is actually said here. I guess capitalism bad? Nuclear bombs are bad? None of it is handled with any nuance or intrigue, it's just there. It's also drastically mishandled. You'd think that a serial explicitly about colonialism featuring humans moving onto an already populated planet would do something with that, but somewhat uncharacteristically, Hulk doesn't even go near that idea. Instead, the natives of Euraxius aren't really given a choice in who lays claim to the planet. It's really weird. But the worst thing is, this one goes on for 6 episodes and there really isn't enough there to justify that. As you'll see across this video, I'm actually a 6-episode serial defender. A lot of my favorite serials ever written are 6-parters. But I cannot defend this one. There simply isn't enough being said here to justify that runtime. This is made most apparent by the fact that it takes 4 episodes to get the Master into the story, and it's only in the very last one that his plan is made clear. It's just a slog to get through. 1.5 stars gets some points for some occasionally funny moments.
Doctor, come back at once.
Okay, the next 3 are just about equal in my mind, so their positions on the list could swap at any given moment. But for now, this is how I feel about them. The Doctor and Joe land on the planet Spiridon, where they are set upon by the aggrieved natives, the invisible Spiridons. They also meet a party of Thals, who are on a mission to save the galaxy. They find that the Daleks are on the planet preparing for an invasion of Earth, and also doing some invisibility experiments on the side, and the Doctor and Joe find they have to fight for their survival. That's it, that's the story. And once again, it goes for 6 episodes. Terry Nation is a writer I have a love-hate relationship with. On the one hand, he did invent the Daleks, and I think that his first serial is some of the best Hartnell-era Doctor Who ever produced, except for that one episode that's just them faffing about in caves. That was a mistake. But I also find that he's not always a particularly inventive writer. While he definitely struck gold with the Daleks the first couple of times, by the Pertwee era it felt like he'd run out of ideas as to what to do with them. The most interesting idea for their use, their attempts at invisibility, is brought up a total of once and then completely forgotten. The result is that this serial meanders its way through its 6-episode runtime without ever actually saying anything. It's not all bad. In fact, far from it. The first episode is one I really like, as it builds the creeping atmosphere of Spiridon perfectly, something that is enhanced by the fact that it was David Maloney behind the camera for this serial, I imagine. But after that, it begins to slide. The Doctor and Joe get captured, escape, get captured by others, sit around and talk, and that's it. There's no sense of urgency to this serial at all. 2.5 stars, my interest in this one is solely maintained by Maloney's direction. We're gonna get all the Dalek ones out in pretty quick succession, I'm afraid. The Doctor and Sarah Jane land on Exelon, where they are set upon by the aggrieved native Exelons and a party of humans who are on a humanitarian mission. Soon they discover the Daleks are also on this planet, and they find they have to fight for their survival. Hey, wait a minute. Terry Nation gets a bit of a bad rap in the Whovian community for writing the same story over and over again. I find that occasionally unfair, but in terms of this and Planet of the Daleks, it's unavoidably true. They have almost exactly the same story beats in places. But even then, I don't necessarily think this is Terry's fault. See, the hook of the story is that the Doctor and Sarah Jane are forced down on Exelon by a beacon that drains all forms of energy. They find it belongs to the Exelons. Their ancestors had built a massive, technologically advanced city long in the past, but they had long since forgotten its secrets and instead worshipped it as a deity. Hey, wait a minute. My point is, this was originally the focus of the story, but producer Barry Letts went to Terry and told him to put the Daleks in it. So the rewrite shoves the potentially interesting, if not also recycled, main premise to the side, and in the process becomes Planet of the Daleks 2 Electric Boogaloo. So why does this one squeak out just above Planet? Only having 4 episodes instead of 6 really works in the serial's favour. It also actually has a pretty palpable atmosphere, more so than Planet did. The location work is just standard Doctor Who quarry stuff, but director Michael E. Bryant brings a fantastic moodiness to it, especially in the first episode. So tiny details work in its favour to bring it up slightly above Planet, but it's still a lot of the same boring storytelling and characters. 2.5 stars, just largely not a lot going on. The Doctor and Joe visit the Master in jail, who appears to have turned over a new leaf and wants to become better. He's faking, of course. In actual fact, he's contacted a species of Silurians who live underwater, planning on using their drive to reconquer Earth for his own personal gain. Okay, I feel like this one being down so low might be in the realm of hot takes, so please let me explain myself. Are there a lot of really great concepts in this serial? Absolutely. The ideas present in this serial are interesting and thought-provoking, but I've seen them before, in a little serial called Doctor Who and the Silurians. The Sea Devils is literally just that, but underwater, and lacking the political intrigue that drove the Silurians forward. All the nuance is gone. This isn't to say that there are no original ideas in this serial. For example, the idea that the Master is manipulating the Silurians' desire for their planet back for his own personal gain is a good one. But beyond that, Malcolm Hulke is just treading water with this one. It doesn't feel like he's got anything to say, and the result is that at 6 episodes long, this actually feels more of a slog to get through than The Silurians, which is a full episode longer than this one. So if I consider this a case of Hulke ripping himself off without any of the nuance of the original, why is it higher up than some of the other serials here? Well, because there are moments where I do see why others love this one. For one, the Doctor and the Master's dynamic is on top form in this one. It's not hard to find the fight where the Doctor kicks the Master's ass and then eats his sandwich at an iconic. The scene where the Master watches the clangers is an all-time gag, so good that Russell T Davies reused it in the modern era. And from a production level, it is very well put together. Like with Death of the Daleks, Michael E. Bryant is able to bring a great atmosphere to the proceedings with his directing, making scenes like the Silurians emerging from the surf and the minefield scene as iconic as they are. And then of course there's Malcolm Clarke's entirely electronic score, one that seems to be hit or miss for some, but I find compelling in an eerie way. 2.5 stars, it's not bad or anything, but ultimately it isn't that much to me in totality. Diplomat Sir Reginald Styles survives an assassination attempt orchestrated from the future. It is believed that Styles will cause an explosion in his home, one that will kill several high-ranking diplomats and cause a world war that will allow the Daleks to successfully invade the planet. The Doctor and Jo find themselves involved and work in both present and future to avert this war and save the planet from the reign of the Daleks. Boy oh boy, is this one a tough one to watch, just because it exists in a bizarre place where neither edition really does it for me. The original televised version is seen as lackluster in terms of production for good reason. The Daleks' voices are pretty weak, and the low-budget approach meant that the final battle lacked the scale that it aimed for. The special edition fixes that latter point very well, I find. The reshoots at the house are pretty seamlessly done. But for me, Nicholas Briggs' overdubs for the Daleks feels out of place. If they'd modulated his voice to sound more like a classic Dalek, like from Power of the Daleks or something, I'd be ballin'. But the fact that it's pretty much the revival Dalek voice really takes me out of it. I'm also not keen at all on the CGI landscapes made for the special editions, I have to be honest. The dinky models and the matte paintings work a lot better for me. Okay, but what about the story itself? It's my opinion that everything interesting that happens in the serial happens in the first and last episodes. The build-up of the first episode is very nicely done, and the final episode is packed with great moments. The reveal that the rebels are the ones who caused the war in the first place is a great paradox loop, and the battle at Alderley House, in the special edition anyway, is pretty exciting. But most of the middle 2 episodes fails to be interesting at all in my mind. It's just standard Daleks are bad stuff, without any of the intriguing time travel mechanics of episodes 1 and 4. It's a shame, really. 2.5 stars, very almost good. Look, put the pitchforks down, let me explain myself. The Centauran General Lynx crash lands on Earth and sets up shop in the castle of the disgraced Lord Irongron. In return, he gives Irongron advanced weaponry, which he intends to use to usurp the land of his rivals and eventually take over all of England. Meanwhile, Lynx kidnaps scientists from the future to help fix his spacecraft, prompting the Doctor to investigate. So, okay, when I first went into my great Doctor Who marathon of 2017, I was excited to watch The Time Warrior. After all, everyone had told me it was one of the best, a Robert Holmes classic. And then I watched it and went, huh, that's it? This feeling prevails after watching it again recently. I consider this to be, in general, a classic Robert Holmes script. The banter is there and his concepts are inventive as ever. On paper, this should be one I really love. But in execution, it falls on its face. See, director Alan Bromley doesn't appear to be taking this serial particularly seriously. This is one of Holmes' more silly scripts in places, but his sense of humour is best paired with a completely straight-faced direction, an example of which I will bring up in due course. But Bromley isn't directing it properly. The banter between Lynx and Irongron feels like it should be delivered through the very English sarcastic bites that is Holmes' calling card, but instead Irongron shouts pretty much every line he has. It kneecaps the writing, and it's just things like that. It's actually hard to quantify in words. I just don't think the direction of this serial matches the script at all. And the result is that something that should be on paper one of my favorites becomes lackluster in my eyes. I just can't connect with it. At some point I'm gonna have to track down the target novelization and see if that connects better with me. 3 stars, love the script, but can't get into the direction. All of the serials up until now have been ones I'm not in any rush to revisit. But here on in, we're going to go through ones I'd watch over and over again. Some of them I have quite frequently. So here goes. The Axons land on planet Earth, offering the humans a rare mineral, Axonite. They claim it will solve the energy crisis on Earth, no strings attached. But it's not that simple, of course. The Axons, or rather the singular Axos, has far more grim plans in mind for Earth. In general, this is pretty paint-by-numbers Unit Who, to the point of almost being boring. But there are a couple of things that keep this one afloat, bring it up to kind of fun instead of tedious. The first is that while the plot itself is formulaic to a T, the actual minutiae of the serial present interesting little scenarios. Bob Baker and Dave Martin aren't a pair of writers I consider to be strong plot developers, but they can write an entertaining character dynamic with a nice touch. Take the Doctor's utter outrage to the Tory politician whose machinations allow Axos to install Axonite on Earth.
England for the English, good heavens, man! I have a duty to my country, not to the world!
Or take the Master's utterly hysterical jab at the Protect and Survive Nuclear Preparedness Initiative.
I suppose you can take the normal precautions against nuclear blast, like sticky tape on the windows and that sort of thing?
That last one, by the way, comes out of nowhere. Baker and Martin must have just hated those films and pamphlets and needed somewhere to air that out. Hilarious. So that all helps keep the serial afloat, but what also helps is the direction. Michael Ferguson's direction for this serial is wonderfully psychedelic, filled with swirling colors and trippy CSO. It really is a visual treat, and it doesn't look quite like anything else released in the Pertwee era. It's also occasionally really violent. There are at least 2 occasions when someone explodes on screen. Sure, one of them was an Axon, but that one exploded while being thrown off a cliff in a Jeep. So yeah, this one's kind of violent in a really entertaining way. Beyond that, I really don't have a lot to say about this serial. 3 stars. It's mostly just kind of there, but still manages to be memorable in its own weird way. The Doctor and Joe land on Peladon as the planet is beginning negotiations to join the Galactic Federation. But there are rumblings, stories of an ancient monster god that will rise up and strike down those who oppose its will. But what is the truth behind Agador? Or are the Ice Warriors up to their old tricks? So, there is one massive leap in logic you have to make to enjoy this story, and it's right in the setup. See, in this story we meet King Peladon, who rules over the city of Peladon, on the planet Peladon. Look, just imagine for a second Martians land tomorrow and we direct them to King Earth in the Citadel of Earth. However, once you get over that slight hurdle, the rest is just cracking good political sci-fi. Brian Hales uses the pacing of the 4-part serial perfectly, unfolding the conspiracy at the heart of the serial with a very deliberate pace. I went into this one under the impression that it would be a bit boring, but I was pretty engrossed with it. It helps that the characters involved are pretty compelling. Joe is as charming as ever, and Peladon, played by David Troughton, is extremely believable as the young and extremely inexperienced king. His complete inability to have a proper conversation with Joe without putting his foot in his mouth might strike some as annoying, but to me it's perfectly realistic. Just a very well written and performed character. And then of course there's Lenny Main's directing. I mentioned earlier that he has a particular touch that I really like, and you can really see it here, particularly in the Ealing Studios 16mm film shoots. The sequence of the Doctor and Joe climbing the mountain on Peladon is beautifully shot and directed, giving a sense of danger to the climb. And the fight in episode 3 has a fantastic point of view shot, an example of Main's outside the box thinking that, when he displays, really makes the serials he directs special. 3.5 stars, just good solid Doctor Who. The Master is up to his old tricks again. This time he's built a time device named Tom Tit with the intention of summoning a being from outside time under the impression he will be granted infinite power by it. The Doctor and unit try to stop him, and the adventure to do so takes them all across time and space, from the depths of the vortex to Atlantis, I guess. Look, this script is fucking nonsense. Everyone knows this. Little to nothing that happens makes any sense. The Atlantis stuff is ridiculous, the design of Kronos is laughable, and the time machine is named fucking Tom Tit. This isn't good Doctor Who. I, however, really like it. See, it's impossible for me to not have a good time watching this one. I could spend the runtime picking apart the nonsense of it, or I could turn my brain off and go for the ride. Just let the madness take me. But even on a critical level, this is a great load of fun. Trying to imagine what the hell was going on in Robert Sloman's mind when he was writing this one makes me chuckle, especially given his other contributions to Doctor Who. See, all his trappings as a writer are here. The interest in mythology from the demons, the mystical crystals from the Green Death and Planet of the Spiders, a villain chasing an unknowable power only for it to blow up in his face, and an interest in mysticism. But here it's all just turned up to 11. It's glorious. Also, this serial is quite amazingly rude for family television from the 70s. See, the name Tom Tit is called out multiple times in the serial. It's deliberate. Sloman knew what he was doing, which can only mean canonically the Master deliberately named it Tom Tit to fuck with people. Then beyond that, you get a sudden coccyx joke in episode 4 and the very horny presentation of the Queen of Atlantis. Sloman was writing this with one hand, just as Stephen Moffat would go on to do with his run of Doctor Who. Absolute lunatic. But then out of nowhere you get genuinely really good moments, like the actually great cliffhanger where Captain Yates appears to have been killed and the brig betrays that he sees Yates as a friend by calling him Mike, or the truly diabolical cliffhanger where the Master ejects the Doctor into the vortex and leaves Jo to die alone. 3.5 stars. Sensationally stupid, but I love it. The Doctor and Jo find themselves in the middle of a cold war between the humans and the Draconians, one that is threatening to break into violence any moment. But who is orchestrating this war? And can the Doctor stop it before it's too late? This one gets a bit of flack for being standard the Doctor gets captured, escapes again, and then gets captured again stuff for 6 episodes. And yeah, it is that. Denying that would be pointless, but I really like this one. I don't know, I think it's the application of that particular trope here that interests me. Malcolm Hulke is no stranger to this little tactic. He did some rewrites on the Ambassadors of Death, a serial that does this a lot, and Sarah Jane spends half of Invasion of the Dinosaurs in captivity. But the difference between Hulke and others is that he has the good sense to utilize this trope to flesh out the world building in the serial. Frontier in the Space works really well in this respect. There's a huge detour where the Doctor is sent to a lunar penal colony for being a Draconian spy. In the hands of another writer, this might be about as interesting as watching paint dry, but Hulke uses it to further the goal of the serial, to paint the Earth government as being pretty crap. Most of the prisoners on the moon are political dissidents who got sent up the river for suggesting that the president of Earth sucks. There's a freedom peace party fighting for the rights of the people on Earth. Oh yeah, have I mentioned yet that Hulke was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party? All of this serves a purpose and builds up the central point of the story, that the Earth government is paranoid of anything that challenges them, and this is a part of why they're ready to go to war with Draconia over a couple of acts of alleged piracy. Beyond that, there's still a lot to love in this serial. The Draconians are beautifully designed, if less well handled on paper, and the Master gets some of my favourite lines from him.
Do not fail the Daleks indeed, you stupid tin boxes.
That latter point is somewhat marred by his underwhelming exit from the serial, and further marred by the fact that this is the last time we see Roger Delgado's incarnation of the character. It's a tragic waste that he passed away in that car crash, and it remains my opinion that nobody has played the Master as well as he. 3.5 stars, a bit long, but I still really like it. The Doctor and Joe go to Stangmore Prison, where a device named the Keller Machine is being used to treat violent criminals and make them model members of society. But something is wrong. People keep dying in mysterious circumstances in the prison. At the same time, a peace conference is threatened when the Master begins interfering. Somehow, these two are connected. I'll get this out of the way, the Master's plan in this serial is fucking nonsense. See, his plan is to steal a missile from the English army and use it to destroy the peace conference so a world war starts. To do this, he's using a creature which feeds off evil to scare people to death when he needs it to, and he's also using Captain Chin Li of the Chinese army, who he links to the monster so she can use its power to scare people to death. And also he has a lunatic take control over the prison so he can... Look, here's the thing. If you think about the plot of this serial for longer than about a second, you're not going to have a good time. It's borderline incoherent. So why is it up as high as it is? Because it's fun. This serial's entertainment value is squarely placed on the shoulders of the personalities of the people involved. Delgado is on absolutely top form as the Master, maintaining his unreal balance between being really intimidating and being genuinely hilarious. The dynamic between the Doctor and the Master does some extremely heavy lifting to disguise the fact that this script doesn't make any sense.
Ah, Doctor, I was afraid you'd be worried about me, so I thought I'd let you know that I'm alive and well.
I'm extremely sorry to hear that.
There is yet to be a Doctor and Master dynamic that even begins to touch this one in my mind, except for maybe the 12th Doctor and Missy. It's just unreal how believable they are as friends and enemies. It might be ridiculous that the Master pops up in every serial in Season 8, but for the stuff we get between the Doctor and the Master, it really is almost worth it. 3.5 stars, sheer bloody nonsense, but I have a good time anyway. On the planet Solos, the native inhabitants are ruled over by a human empire. The governor of the planet intends to take the planet by force, leaving it uninhabitable for the Solonians. But something is happening to the Solonians. They are mutating into terrifying creatures and causing havoc. The Doctor and Joe must rush not only to help the Solonians work out what is happening to them, but to stop the mad governor from exterminating them entirely. The mutants seems to be seen as the ugly duckling of Season 9. While the Time Monster is much more laughed at, the mutants is seen as sub-average and often seems to be mentioned in the same breath as Colony in Space as boring 6-part 3rd Doctor serials. And I have but one message to all of those who told me this is boring. You lied. You lied to me. The mutants and Colony in Space do share a lot of common DNA, but the former vastly succeeds where the latter massively doesn't. In fact, this is one of the most politically charged serials of its time. Have all of its attempts at commentary aged well? Probably not. But its total commitment to an anti-racist message is commendable. People often refer to this as an apartheid parable, and there are some elements of that throughout. The separate teleportation pods for the humans and the Solonians is a pretty on-the-nose visual metaphor for that, and also provides some excellent quiet commentary too. The Doctor seems to make a point to use the Solonian teleportation pod. But most of all, this is a serial that utterly condemns colonialism as a practice. Bob Baker and Dave Martin know writers who use subtlety and believe them to be cowards. The serial near explicitly states that to colonize somewhere that people already live is to utterly destroy the indigenous people and their culture. The entire crux of the serial is that the Solonians don't understand what's happening to them and why, because the humans had so thoroughly destroyed their culture and their sense of identity. It's especially surprising to see because Baker and Martin are almost never this explicit in their other work. But beyond the political commentary, this is still just cracking good TV. All of the location work in the swamps and the caves have this fantastic gloom about them, and the story moves at a pretty damn good pace. I was hooked the entire time, and of all the Season 9 serials, I think I plowed through this one the fastest. 3.5 stars, give this one a proper chance. In the town of Devil's End, a sealed-off burial mound is being opened by a renowned archaeologist. But something is unleashed, something old and powerful. Is it alien, or is it the Haunted One himself? This serial exists in a realm of Doctor Who that no other show does better. Doing something utterly ridiculous, but wearing a perfectly straight face about it. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. The Doctor going toe-to-toe with a living gargoyle named Bok and the literal actual devil, who turns out to be an alien who's using Earth as some kind of messed up science experiment, is a ludicrous concept. In the hands of most writers and or directors, this would be a disaster. But it was written by Robert Sloman and Barry Letts, who, when paired together, commit to the bit like their lives depend on it. We've already seen the results of that in The Time Monster. Mixed with Christopher Barry's direction, which takes the content of the script completely and totally seriously, this serial becomes magic.
Oh, that was really pretty bad.
There is a reason several cast and crew members, including Jon Pertwee, call this their favorite serial. From top to bottom, it's cracking stuff. The first episode that builds in tension as it counts down to the opening of The Devil's Hump. The Master running a cult out of a church, insert commentary here. The running gag involving the Doctor remote controlling Bessie that actually pays off in the best way possible. It's unimaginably well put together. Everyone was firing on all cylinders for this one, but most of all, you can tell everyone was having the time of their lives making it. It even manages to expertly disguise its runtime padding techniques. There's a chase in episode 3 that, in all honesty, is there to pull the episode out to 25 minutes, but Barry directs it with such intensity that you just don't notice. The situation of one of the Master's henchmen trying to push the Doctor into the heat shield surrounding Devil's End is genuinely tense enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. The dialogue in this one is also great. I don't think Robert Sloman is always the greatest dialogue writer. As much as I love The Green Death, some of its lines land with a noticeable clunk, but here he's on fire. It's just really funny stuff. It's also where the 5 rounds rapid line that would follow Nick Courtney for the rest of his life came from, so it's got that going for it. Now, does this serial end on a bit of a damp squib? Sure, but it still works for me. The serial had already built to peak insanity with the Doctor and the Master fighting the literal actual devil for the fate of the planet Earth, while the Brigadier's men are getting their asses kicked by a living gargoyle with fucking fire powers. Joe saving the world with the power of love seems as good a way as any to climb down from that. And it does immediately redeem itself with the epilogue in the town square, so it's really not all that bad. 3.5 stars, just a fantastic spectacle. The Doctor falls to Earth, fresh off his forced regeneration at the hands of the Time Lords. At the same time, the Brigadier investigates the landing of some mysterious meteorites, objects that keep going missing before he can find them. In a plastics factory in the English countryside, a sinister creature makes its plans for world domination. This may be one of the most important serials in the history of Doctor Who. Robert Holmes had the unenviable position of ushering in a completely new direction for the show, the beginning of the Earthbound unit era. It is a testament to his writing prowess that his introduction to this era is not only good, but is also one of the most inventive serials of its era, while also being a not even remotely subtle hit piece on plastics. Seriously, Holmes does not believe in subtlety. It's kind of wonderful. I mean, what can I say about this serial that's not been said already? We all know why it's this bloody good. The fantastic location 16mm film work, the immediate establishment of the Doctor-Brigadier dynamic going forward, the introduction of the tragically short-term Liz Shaw, the genuinely horrifying presentation of the Autons. Seriously, the segment in episode 4 where the Autons gun down the morning commuters is still one of the most chilling sequences in the show's history. The absolutely lunatic concept of a hive mind creature that uses living plastic to establish a physical form to itself. It's all bloody genius. So, why isn't this in my top 5? Because I don't always love the televised version. Now, do not get me wrong, it's still fucking good television. But my first exposure to this serial was the Target novelization, titled Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion. And the annoying truth is, that is a much better version of this serial. On TV, it occasionally feels like there are bits missing. This isn't the fault of anyone involved. I imagine it was simply a case of cutting the episodes down to fit the 4-episode order. But in the novel, the moments I feel are missing something are fleshed out even more, making it an even more compelling ride. Is this something I'd harp on if I hadn't read the book? In all realism, probably not. But having that version to compare it to does dock this a couple of spots in my mind. 3.5 stars, genuinely a work of genius, but the book is better. A group of men in a Buddhist meditation retreat are summoning spiders from Metebelis 3, craving the power to take over the world. But the spiders have their own plans. They plan to take the planet for their own, and to get their hands on the last perfect Metebelis crystal, which once again has fallen into the possession of the Doctor. Now, Has the serial aged gracefully? No? I could just put clips of Choji on a screen and rest my case, but it's not just that. A lot of this probably wouldn't be broadcast today, but I don't think it hits Talons of Weng Chiang levels of cringe. See, bits of this have aged badly, but the thing is, there's absolutely no malice intended here. In fact, it's really earnest and sincerely means nothing but the best. While the understanding of Buddhism as a religion is quite amazingly surface level and from my limited understanding frequently inaccurate, it's clear that Sloman and Letts are trying to promote the ideology as a really good thing and truly believe in some of its ideas. In fact, the idea of renewal is core to the thematic connection to regeneration. The Doctor must destroy his ego and in the process becomes a new man. There are also moments where my reaction is, that hasn't aged as badly as I was expecting. The best example of this is Tommy, the mentally disabled man who lives at the retreat and collects shiny things. Mentally disabled people were, and still are, something of a punchline in media, so when Sarah Jane is kind to him and the Doctor listens to him despite everyone else pushing him off, it feels a lot more real. And sure, he gets cured by the crystal, but after that his character continues to be really compelling. I'm gonna be real, I relate to the guy. And Choji...
But in our way, the Vajrayana...
Yeah, I can't really defend this. This is just cringe. But everything else actually works despite its aged presentation. It's still a great serial. Anyway, 3.5 stars, flawed but completely sincere. The Doctor and Sarah Jane return to London only to find it completely deserted. It becomes apparent that it has been evacuated because somehow dinosaurs have returned. But how? And what is Project Golden Age? Invasion of the Dinosaurs gets a pretty bad rap because of its visual effects. The dinosaurs suck, everyone says. They're no good. They're dog water. Here's the thing. I don't care. In fact, this is going to be a Patty Russell appreciation segment. Russell only directed 4 Doctor Who serials, but her work represents some of the best in the show. See her perfect gothic horror atmosphere for Pyramids of Mars and horror of Fang Rock. This skill is readily apparent in this serial too, in that she knows when exactly to use the dinosaur models. She understands that they suck too, so she tries to use them only when she has to, and uses the shots surrounding the dodgy effects to hide as many of the seams as humanly possible. It's honestly pretty commendable work, all things considered. The scene in the hangar where Sarah Jane tries to get photos of the T-Rex genuinely succeeds in being tense. If you can get past the dinosaurs though, this is a pretty captivating serial that I think is actually pretty ahead of its time in its political messaging. See, the core concept of the serial is that a group of rich people are promised a new golden age by a scientist who intends to use a time machine to reverse Earth to before humanity had evolved, essentially wiping out the human race, save for their selected few. It's a brutal call out of the sect of climate activists who bandy about the concept of humans are the real disease, and does it with a surprising amount of care. It also has a pretty cautionary tale in the form of the people duped by Project Golden Age, that when you're fighting for what's right, you have to be careful of people who are co-opting movements for their own personal gain. Again, it's no shock that something this political would come from Malcolm I'm a Raging Communist Hulk, who also takes several pot shots at the British military while he's there. There is the fly in the ointment of Yates's betrayal though. I think there's a video's worth of material as to whether that works or not, but in short, kinda? I'm conflicted. But overall, I love this one. Warts and all, it takes a swipe at a seriously nuanced topic and mostly sticks the landing while at the same time being highly entertaining sci-fi television. 4 stars, ignore the dinosaurs and give this one a chance. A murder happens at Project Inferno, a drilling operation to pierce the Earth's crust. When the Doctor and Liz arrive to investigate, they find a force is leaking out from beneath the crust, corrupting anybody who comes in contact. The Doctor warns the drillers to stop lest they unleash this horror, but to no avail. Then he finds himself in an alternate timeline, one that runs slightly ahead in time than his own. Can he convince both universes to stop their drilling? Or will they both burn under the fury from beneath the Earth's crust? Inferno does something I will always love to see. Lovecraft horror storytelling through the lens of wonky sci-fi Doctor Who. We never really find out what the force under the crust is, just that it corrupts people into the mindless Prime Lords, and that should it be unleashed, it would blanket the planet in fire. The result is a tension that really sets your teeth on edge, a tension that is only aided by the constant oppressive hum of the drill as it bores its way through the Earth. The alternate timeline stuff is also brilliant storytelling. Going into the Unit era, Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks understood that keeping the Doctor on Earth might sacrifice a bit of tension as to whether the Doctor could win or lose. By moving the bulk of the action to another timeline, the Doctor is able to lose, completely and totally. In that timeline, the Inferno is unleashed. It results in one of the most chilling and definitely the most bleak cliffhanger in the show's history, as an entire planet is destroyed as he tries to escape to save his Earth. It's an example of what sets Season 7 apart from anything else in Doctor Who history, a grounded edge that allows the show to dip into darker territory without being utterly miserable like bits of Season 22 can be. There is probably a perfectly good version of this serial that is an episode shorter, but as the serial is, it's incredible. It builds to an almost unbearable tension, which means once the Doctor does finally stop the drilling in his universe, there's a relief unlike anything else in the show. 4 stars, unreal ending for Season 7. The Nestine is making another attempt at conquering the Earth after its initial defeat in Spearhead from Space, but this time it has help. An old friend turned enemy of the Doctor's has landed on Earth, ready to conquer. I understand that preferring this one to Spearhead from Space isn't a popular opinion, and I will be honest, I do understand that in a lot of ways, this is the less good serial. The production value is a lot more ropey, it's a bit more stream of consciousness than the tightly scripted Spearhead, and the climax relies entirely on the Doctor convincing the Master to help him in about 2 sentences. This is a flawed serial, but in terms of entertainment value, man does this serial deliver. This is another example of committing very hard to a very silly bit. Take for example the increasingly inventive ways the Master uses Nestine plastic to kill people. The People Eater chair and the living telephone cable are inherently nonsensical and absurd ideas, but the serial is taking them completely seriously without even a hint of a wink at the audience. The result is that it becomes genuinely effective stuff. Good Doctor Who isn't always about serious topics. Sometimes it's about conceiving the most ridiculous bit you can think of and committing to it like your life depends on it. And of course, this serial introduces the Master. And again, Roger Delgado is instantly iconic. With just one scene, he establishes himself as a genuine menace, and the rest of the serial is used to flesh out his relationship with the Doctor and his nature as a complete and total bastard.
Yes, he sat down in this chair here and just slipped away.
He's such a piece of shit. He's amazing. See, people need to remember that the Master is genuinely funny. Also, while I'm here, shout out to Terry Walsh for this incredible stunt. According to Barry Letts, he did this basically for free, just because he wanted to do the stunt. Lunatic. 4 stars, this is just good fun. A strange being is wreaking havoc on Earth, stealing people away and sending gelatinous monsters to lay siege on Unit. At the same time, a mysterious force from beyond the event horizon of a black hole is draining the Time Lord's power sources, leaving them vulnerable. Their only solution to stop both attacks is to send the Doctor, and the Doctor in to confront the Force head-on. Is this serial in all reality pretty lightweight and a bit on the silly side? Sure, not a heap actually happens in this serial, and the gel guards are utterly ridiculous. And that's not just me saying that, apparently even director Lenny Mayne hated them. But that doesn't stop this serial from being an all-time classic. It's not only the first multi-Doctor story, but it's still one of the best. I think when Bob Baker and Dave Martin were writing this, they were well aware that it was going to be carried by the comic banter, and they definitely lean into that. The dialogue is absolutely the standout of the serial, from the more low-key moments to the second and third Doctor's infamous bickering. Baker and Martin have a very keen sense of how to get jokes out of these characters, which leads to classic moments like Benton and the Brig's first time in the TARDIS, and the Brig's refusal to accept anything going on around him. It's genuinely funny stuff. But of course, the focus is the multi-Doctor angle, and everyone involved gives it their A-game. The arrival of the second Doctor is far and away the standout scene in this respect. Pertwee and Troughton are both compelling as ever, and Lenny Mayne gets to do something creative. The split-screen editing of the second Doctor's appearance is damn clever stuff. It's simple, but clever. And sure, the stuff involving Omega is fascinating too, and began to shape how we understand Time Lord society before Robert Holmes took the reins in The Deadly Assassin. But the real magic is of course in seeing the 3 Doctors on screen together. It is a shame that William Hartnell wasn't well enough to truly join in the proceedings, but he truly makes the most of his limited role and brings the First Doctor to life all over again. 4 stars, a cracking good time. The Doctor and Jo land on a 1920s cargo ship, one that seems to be stuck inside some kind of loop. But they're not on Earth at all, they're deep within a miniscope, an intergalactic peep show curated by a circus man and his assistant. Robert Holmes is well remembered for being a clever, inventive writer. But one thing I don't see as many people comment on is that he could be really funny. And when his deft sense of comedy is brought up, it's usually the Sunmakers that comes up, which is fair. But Carnival of Monsters is equally fantastic in this respect. Every single part of this script is firing on all cylinders. The runaround on the cargo ship provides genuine intrigue. Vorg and Schörner, the showman, are genuinely entertaining characters. The aliens on the planet they've landed on are even funnier, their moustache-twirling plan to usurp power being played to comical highs. There is always something going on in this serial, and I think it remains to this day the best use of the 4-part serial format in the show's history. Seriously, you could not cut a single scene out of this. I compiled a full movie-length omnibus edit of this one for my own personal viewing, and the 90 minutes is gone in a flash. It is exceptionally well paced. But what really pulls all the pieces together is the direction. I complained earlier about The Time Warrior, feeling that Holmes's brand of wit was ill-mixed with Alan Bromley's direction of that serial. No such problem is to be found here. In fact, Barry Letts directs this serial completely straight-faced, properly accentuating Holmes's sense of humor. But more than that, it makes the serial genuinely gripping. The Drashigs manage to actually be pretty menacing. It's all bright and colourful, sure, but it never feels like it's slipping into pantomime because the actors involved are taking it extremely seriously. Katie Manning oft maintains in DVD commentaries that Doctor Who only ever works if the actors truly believe what they're doing is real. I don't know, for some reason it's hard for me to truly verbalise in such a short time why Carnival of Monsters is this good. I also don't want to spoil too much of it, because if you've not seen it, you really have to. It's fantastic television. 4 stars, never a dull moment with this one. A nuclear-powered research station in the moors is experiencing problems, intermittent power loss, and panic-stricken staff. The Doctor and Liz arrive to investigate and discover these phenomena are being caused by the Silurians, a species of lizard people who lived on Earth long before humans. The Doctor attempts to broker peace between the humans and the Silurians, but parties on both sides wish to keep the planet entirely for themselves. The Silurians is damn incredible television. Of any 7-episode serial released in the show, it's definitely the one that has the least pacing issues, succeeding in telling a story that at no point drags or feels played out. Malcolm Hogg is something of an inconsistent writer. Some of his serials feature towards the bottom of his list, but some of his serials are also amongst some of my favorites. But of everything he wrote for this show, this is unequivocally the best set of scripts he turned in by himself. What amazes me about the Silurians is that it takes itself completely and totally seriously. This can be said for the rest of season 7 too. This season is the most serious the classic show ever got, but the others were in a way a bit more grounded. This one involves people dressed in rubber costumes acting as lizard people who live in caves and have pet dinosaurs. In the hands of a lot of others, this would have been ridiculous. But Hogg's script is handled with an intense maturity, as is Timothy Combs' direction. The result is that you just stop seeing the rubber costumes. The Silurian characters feel entirely real and believable, so much so that you don't really have a problem telling them apart. It's just as well that all these elements work so perfectly because the storytelling involved cannot work without it. The first 5 episodes unfold like a slow burn political drama, dressed up with depictions of murder and madness. But then there's the segment that runs between episodes 5 and 7. The epidemic subplot. Some feel this feels tacked on, but I couldn't disagree more. It feels necessary that the race of Silurian does something this horrible to make the serial's point, that the victims of any war waged by warmongers are civilians. More to the point, episode 6 of this serial prompted the most visceral reaction from me an episode of Classic Who ever has. Maybe it's because we live in a world that's still reeling from COVID, but the depiction of the epidemic in that episode is the most hauntingly real shit Doctor Who has ever put out. The Silurians was already great, but episode 6 elevates it to brilliant status. Does this serial have its doofy moments? Sure, it's got some of the most ridiculous cliffhangers in the show's history, and Carrie Blyton's score is a choice, but those passing silly moments are far outweighed by everything else. The haunting cliffhanger to episode 5, the beginning of episode 6 where the Brigadier pulls a gun on a civilian doctor to make him lock down his hospital to stop the spread of the Silurian bacteria, and the ending of episode 7 that just leaves the viewer feeling hollow. 4.5 stars, unreal television. Earth loses contact with 2 astronauts coming home from a mission to Mars, and a recovery mission is sent up to help them. When the recovery spacecraft lands, the astronauts on board are not the same people that went up. They've been replaced by beings who can kill with a touch, who appear to be spearheading an invasion force. But is all as it seems, or are these aliens merely a pawn in someone else's game? This being the highest ranked serial from season 7 might be a surprise to some. From what I can tell, it's often seen as the ugly duckling of the season. Not bad necessarily, but not on the same level of Spearhead or Inferno or the Silurians. And I must admit, I can't understand why. Okay, that's not entirely true. I do get that it relies a bit on some of the padding techniques Classic Who likes to employ to fill episode time when needed. Long chase scenes, capture and escape cycles, etc. But I think that David Whittaker and Malcolm Hulke utilize them to better effect than most. It genuinely feels like things are being learned and developed on the occasions that these loops are employed to keep an episode going, making for a more gripping experience than usual in situations like that. This script is pretty great in my mind in general. It's unclear who's more responsible for it between Whittaker and Hulke, but Hulke's tendencies towards conspiracies in his writings definitely seem to lend a hand in the execution of General Carrington's plan. The characters involved all feel pretty real, making the premise all the more believable. And this story has one of the best cliffhangers in the history of the series. The hard cut after the Doctor's cut it open in episode 2 is just fantastic. Which brings me to the production quality of this serial, because it is also unreal. There's an eerie quality to it, which I find unmatched in any other Doctor Who serial, an eeriness that is enhanced by everyone. The ominous hiss of oxygen tanks that follows the ambassadors provided by Brian Hodgson, the swirling theme given to the ambassadors by Dudley Simpson, the direction of their appearances by Michael Ferguson. If there's a shot that instantly comes to mind when I think of season 7, it's one late in the serial of the ambassadors approaching the mission control base, backlit by the cold winter sun. It could be that the production quality of this serial is doing some vastly heavy lifting and that the script isn't actually all that much, but whatever it is, I found that I've watched Ambassadors of Death, a 7-episode serial that comes to nearly 3 hours long, a lot more than I've watched some 45-minute New Who episodes. Is there a perfectly good version of this serial that's only 4 or 5 episodes long? Very probably. But as it is, I still love this one. 4.5 stars, I just can't get enough of it. Global Chemicals claims to have created a process by which they can make cleaner, more affordable petrol. But the process has noxious byproducts that they've dumped into a nearby mine, a toxin that kills and mutates. The Doctor tries to stop the production of this substance, but finds something else is in control of Global Chemicals, something with delusions of world domination. This serial, in my mind, is the Third Doctor's run in 2.5 hours. It has everything I love about this run distilled into television perfection. The Third Doctor's genuine scientific curiosity drives the story. The unit team is never better utilized, and Jo gets lots to do as she fights for environmentalism. Robert Sloman and Barry Letts had incredible understanding of how these characters work, and they're both on absolutely top form here. It's addicting to watch, honestly, and their deft handling of the characters works so well, I actually buy the love story where Jo marries a guy she met 2 days ago. To be fair, I imagine this played out a little better when this was broadcast over 6 weeks rather than watching the whole lot in one go, but even that way, the characters are written well enough that I can accept it, unlike some episodes from the 4th Doctor's run that I could mention. Beyond that, the plot unfolds at an almost perfect pace. There are a couple of more disparate threads. Robert Sloman seems to have a habit of throwing a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks, and this is technically no exception, but here everything sticks. The Doctor pissing off Demeter 3 seems random, but once the crystal he gets there is being used to decondition the victims of the boss's brainwashing, it's a genuine aha moment as it all falls into place. The giant maggots that are so central to the iconic imagery of this serial don't actually show up until the back end of part 2, but by then the menace of the Green Death has been so well established that they feel like an extra hurdle rather than the main villain. The pacing of this serial feels extremely deliberate, and more than anything else, it utilizes the 6-episode format perfectly. In fact, it's this serial that made me a 6-episode serial defender because it shows when it's used well, you can tell incredible stories. It's also so overtly political. I love being able to point to this one when people go, oh, the liberal media made Doctor Who work. This is a takedown of capitalism and climate change with a heavy emphasis on alternate energy sources and even arguments in favor of veganism. But above all, it's emotionally resonant. The ending where the Doctor leaves and drives away on his own is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire show's history in my eyes. 4.5 stars. This is not only my favorite Third Doctor serial, it is my second favorite Doctor Who serial of all time. This, alongside City of Death, is what Doctor Who is to me. And that's it. That's the list. As I said a couple of times, a lot of these serials can trade places depending on mood. In fact, several spots were swapped over in the process of writing this video. As I said earlier, this 5-year run might be the most consistently good run in the show's history. It's got a couple of clunkers, but aside from season 11, they're few and far between in my mind. Anyway, let me know what you all thought in the comments. Did you agree? Do you think I'm a raving lunatic? Would you like me to go more in depth in any of these serials? Give me your thoughts and I will do my best to respond. In the meantime, I hope you all have a good day.